Thank you.
Good morning. Let me get my screen going. Thank you for that introduction, Michelle. All right, hope you all can see that.
Looks good.
Okay, perfect. Yeah, so good morning. I want to thank you all for coming to my presentation. I really appreciate you, taking the time out of your day to listen to me. I'm going to spend the next, maybe 20 minutes or so speaking about my service here as the Forest Resilience Assessment and Outreach Fellow with the El Dorado and Georgetown Divide Resource Conservation Districts. So first, I'd like to begin with a land acknowledgement. So I'll read that here. I acknowledge with respect the land I am working on in El Dorado County is the traditional and ancestral homelands of the Nisenan, Maidu, Miwok, and Washoe peoples. This county was also a site of trade, gathering, and healing for numerous other tribes. Today, the Shingle Springs Band of Miwok Indian represents the indigenous peoples in this area, and the tribe's mission is to protect and enhance the quality of life of its members while preserving its cultural foundation. I recognize the indigenous peoples as the original stewards of this land, and I honor their resilience and enduring legacy. So I'm just incredibly grateful for the opportunity to work and live in this beautiful area. So a little bit about the presentation. I'm going to go through some slides and talk about the background of RCDs in general and the El Dorado RCD, talk about some of the projects I worked on, and then finish up with some final thoughts.
Hey, Jason, I just want to let you know that you're on the presenter view instead of just the slides.
That's funny.
Yeah, no worries. Just wanted to.
There we go. Thank you. Appreciate you.
Awesome.
So yes, just a little bit of background about the El Dorado and Georgetown Divide RCDs, as well as RCDs in general. So the RCDs were created really in response to the Dust Bowl and the ecological disasters of the 1930s. And in 1937, Congress was pressuring the president was pressuring Congress to kind of enact some legislation to protect these private lands, because the US at the time was about 3/4 private land. And so, in 1937, Roosevelt wrote to all the states and, recommending that states enact legislation to create these soil conservation districts with really the goal in mind of conserving land. And so the El Dorado RCD started in 1940. It was one of the first RCDs in the US, and the Georgetown RCD started in 1953. The mission of these organizations is to promote the responsible stewardship of our land and natural resources. So really they do that through advising and assisting landowners and public agencies in the planning and implementation of conservation practices for the protection, restoration, or development of land, water, and related natural resources. As Michelle mentioned, the RCD's office is located in Placerville, but really the RCD works all over the county, and you can see this map on the right. You can see that on the west side or the east, or the west side or the left side of the map, the county stretches from the foothills in the east to the Sierra Crest in the west, in the east rather, and on to Lake Tahoe. So it's quite a large county, and it's mostly forest land with a high wildfire danger. So a lot of the projects that the RCD is working on relates to that wildfire danger, and the focus really is on watershed and forest health and resilience. So at the beginning of my term, I met with our district manager, and we talked about, kind of how my role will fit into the RCD, hierarchy, so to speak. And so we discussed, the needs of the RCD, and really came out with, several big challenges that the RCD is facing, including the capacity to get work done. I mean, it's a small staff. There were 2 staff members when I was onboarded. They have 3 now, but they're dependent on grant funding, and time is limited. And another challenge was that there was a lack of engagement and communication with local landowners. The staff just didn't have time to put themselves out there with the community. So we identified 3 goals for me to kind of step in and help, and those include assisting with the communication and outreach to local landowners, assisting with field work, and then increasing the efficiency and efficacy of programs and project implementation. And so the 4 main projects that I worked on include the Fire Adapted 50, photo monitoring, the Seedling Program, and the Xeriscape Garden. And really my goals in all of these projects were to increase the capacity of the RCD to implement this fire prevention and reforestation work in El Dorado County, and then also systematize some of these workflows for future GrizzlyCorps members and future AmeriCorps members and RCD personnel as well. So Fire Adapted 50, this is an awesome collaborative project. It's a landscape wildfire protection collaborative made up of 5 main actors, including the RCD, the Forest Service, the El Dorado County Fire Safe Council, and CAL FIRE. There's also, many other players involved, including, the botanists and the contractors and all these other personnel that kind of make these projects happen on the ground. And so the 3 goals of this collaborative are to restore and maintain resilient landscapes, create fire adapted communities, and respond to wildfires. And really the main way that they're achieving these goals is through vegetation management projects such as forest thinning and fuels reduction. So I had 2 main duties. I had these kind of administrative functions and these field duties. And so the administrative duties include cataloging and organizing right of entry agreements. Right of entry agreements are basically contracts between a landowner and the RCD, and it allows, and basically the landowner is giving permission to the RCDs and the RCD staff and contractors to go on their land and treat vegetation. I was also in charge of communicating with landowners in our project areas. And so that included bi-weekly and sometimes weekly emails and phone calls to over 100 different landowners in our project areas. And then this project, included, 5 or 6 separate projects throughout the county. And there was just a lot of information to keep track of. So I created a Google Drive account to organize that data and share resources with the RCD team. In terms of my field work, it varied. The RCD has partnered with several contractors to complete vegetation management projects throughout the county. So part of my job included using GPS to map project area boundaries and track our contractors' work in the project area. Additionally, I participated in several botany and wildlife surveys, primarily searching for threatened and endangered species. And then I also created a flagging guide. So this is a flagging is basically the process of tying ribbons or flags to shrubs or trees to delineate project boundaries and to identify special treatment zones. And really they're important because, as you can imagine, if a landowner refused to sign the right of entry agreement and our contractor, removed vegetation on their property, they might be really angry and they have standing to sue the RCD and the contractor. So these flags really delineate our boundaries, the contractor's boundaries. And so when I was onboarded, it took a while for me to kind of understand there's different colors and different placement styles. And so it took a while for me to understand how the RCD was doing that. And so I created this guide, to help myself and future RCD personnel. Another big component was photo monitoring. So photo monitoring is an easy and inexpensive yet highly effective method of monitoring vegetation and ecosystem change over a period of time. So it consists of repeat photography of an area of interest over time with photographs taken at the same location with the same field of view as the original photo. So this is incredibly important for the RCD because they use these photo monitoring and photo monitoring reports for grant funding. And so really they use it to tell the story. It's used in our annual reports and things like that. So I was tasked with doing all the photo monitoring at our several project areas throughout the county. And as you can imagine, it was, some of our project areas have 20 or more photo points. So it was taking quite a bit of photos. So I created a file management system on Google Drive to store and share those resources, to name them, and make it much more easier to navigate, staff to navigate when they're creating these photo monitoring reports. I also created this photo monitoring guide. And it's based off some US Forest Service protocols, photo monitoring protocols, but basically, the guide has field procedures, it has equipment lists, it has office procedures, photo management procedures, all things related to photo monitoring to help these new staff and personnel understand the importance and process for taking photos. And I was also fortunate to create a photo monitoring report for one of our project areas in the community. And basically it consisted of, project descriptions and some before and after photos. And you can see on this slide some before and after photos of before the treatment and then after the treatment on the right. And you can just see, there's a clear, stark difference between the two. And the same in this photo as well. These are taken at slightly different angles, but still get the point across. A lot of that understory shrub are removed, and the idea is to create a shaded field break that can withstand wildfire. Another program I got to work on was the Seedling Program, and this was an awesome program and really arose out of the need for suitable seedlings for reforestation efforts throughout California. So there are many thousands of acres of forest land in California that have been deforested due to wildfire or insect attacks or disease. And so reforestation programs are a major part of forestry and conservation efforts throughout the state and throughout the globe. However, one of the main constraints is finding a suitable seed stock to actually reforest these areas. And there are several nurseries in California that sell seedlings directly to the public, but they have a capacity issue, and part of that's due to COVID, part of that's due to increasing wildfires and the higher need for reforestation efforts throughout California. And so really in 2014, the RCD entered into a contract with the Forest Service, and basically the contract was to allow the Forest Service to grow seedlings for the RCD's clients. And really the purpose was to establish forests or woodlots or windbreaks or wildlife habitat. And so the Placerville Nursery has the capacity to grow several million seedlings each year. And really that's the Seedling Program fills that gap for private landowners that can't access seedlings through these other nurseries. And so the previous manager left in September of 2020, and so it was just about a week after I started, my position at the RCD, and so I stepped in and decided, that I could take on this project. And so my accomplishments include, coordinating the distribution of more than 117,000 seedlings to 27 clients throughout California, and most of these clients were private landowners, and all of them were looking for trees to reforest their properties because they lost trees due to wildfire. And so it was really great connecting with all of these landowners and to hear about their restoration plans. I also redesigned the program webpage to be more informative, have some updated photos, and really provide some resources for landowners. And then I also developed a program guide which details the internal processes to more efficiently organize and catalog seedlings and the distribution to clients. As I mentioned, this was important because the previous manager left, and a lot of his procedures were in his head, and I just didn't have time to download that information from him. So this guide was starting from scratch, and will hopefully be a legacy, for the next GrizzlyCorps member or additional RCD staff member who may be taking on that management. And an awesome event I got to host was the Earth Day seedling giveaway. So in April, we're kind of winding down our seedling program, and we had some surplus seedlings. So there was a community Earth Day event at a local park, and I was able to snag a spot there and, able to recruit 3 student volunteers from the local high school's Natural Resources Club. And they helped me distribute those seedlings to, over 300 seedlings to some really grateful landowners. And so it was just an awesome experience to get out there and interact with the community. I wasn't sure I was going to be able to do something like that because of COVID. And so it was just nice to be able to connect in that way. And then my final big project was the xeriscape garden renovation. And so a little bit of background about that program. The xeriscape garden demonstration site is located at the El Dorado County Fairgrounds in Placerville. And the original project was designed and implemented in 2009. And for several years, the RCD contracted with a local landscaper to maintain the demonstration space. But for the past 5 years or so, the garden has been neglected. And you can see in the top right, in the top left, the kind of a panorama of the garden space, and it's just looking a bit neglected. And so my task was to initiate that renovation of the space. And the goal really was to make that space much more educational and inspiring for the local community. I mean, as you can see, there's, dead plants, and there's message boards that are empty, and there's a tremendous opportunity to make this space, more engaging and educational. And so I developed a site plan and budget for 3 separate renovation options. And all of these options include, new plantings and educational posters, some repainting, and, cleaning up that garden space. And then that final third option includes a gazebo and some picnic tables and some night lighting, and really kind of, make this the Cadillac option, so to speak. But the board of directors will be meeting next month to decide on which option they're going to pursue. And so I didn't get a chance to implement my goals in this presentation, or in this this service year. But really hoping that the next GrizzlyCorps member can take this on and really build on this and renovate this space during their term. And so those are the 4 main projects I worked on, and really wanted to touch on some of the challenges that I experienced this year. And that includes, navigating a new county. I'm from LA, and I've only been through El Dorado County briefly, 15 or so years ago, as I was on my way to South Lake Tahoe. So really unfamiliar with the area. And, coming from a city with several million people to Placerville, which has, I think, close to 11,000, was definitely a big change. Another challenge was the learning curve. I spent several months at the beginning really downloading and researching and trying to figure out my place in the RCD and how I can help. And then another big challenge was the fact that I was unable to gain a link pass and use the RCD computers or vehicles throughout the whole service term. So for those of you who don't know what a link pass is, it's basically a personal identification card for any employee of the USDA. And you might be saying, like, you're not a member of the USDA. Why would you have to go through that? You're working for an RCD. And the RCD actually shares an office with the Natural Resource Conservation Service, which is a federal agency. And we also have our office spaces in a Forest Service building. And so we use their internet and their vehicles. And, I started the process it's a lengthy background check and photos and fingerprinting and all that stuff. And I started it, several weeks before I even began, officially began at the RCD. And the process just took so long, and I just wasn't able to get that card before my service is finished. And so unfortunately, I used my personal laptop and vehicle for doing all kinds of work with the RCD. And then, of course, the big one was the COVID-19 pandemic, and all of us can relate to that. And I think, working from home has its perks, but I definitely prefer working in an office or in the field with coworkers, and I would have really preferred to meet Michelle and Eliza and all the GrizzlyCorps members in person. And so that was a bit of a bummer. And just kind of sum up here, if I had to say in like 3 words what my service year, meant to me, and it was really educational, inspiring, and fun. I learned so much from GrizzlyCorps and the RCD staff and the contractors, and just, I'm currently enrolled in a forestry program, graduate program, and this experience really complemented my studies. And, in terms of inspiring, I mean, everyone at GrizzlyCorps and the RCD is just so driven and knowledgeable. And, it was just refreshing to be in a space with these passionate people. And I also got to work with, amazing landowners and clients and organizations, and just, feel so inspired by the work that everybody's doing, to really restore our physical and mental and ecological resiliency in our communities. And then, of course, fun. I had made good friends in the area and explored mountains by foot and bike, and just, despite the pandemic and all these other challenges, I thoroughly enjoyed my time with GrizzlyCorps and the RCD. So looking ahead, really as a direct result of my experience at the RCD and GrizzlyCorps, I attained a job with the Bear Ewa Land Trust as a land stewardship associate. And my primary duties will be monitoring conservation easements and preserves, habitat restoration and native plant propagation, and GIS and some mapping. And so really just want to end it with a big thank you to GrizzlyCorps, and especially Eliza and Michelle. Just y'all have been fantastic and so supportive. Really appreciate your help and attention throughout this year. Also want to thank all the RCD members. They're pictured here in this photo. And then, of course, my family and friends for their support during this year. And just thank you all for an amazing service here. And that's it for me.
Thank you so much, Jason. It has really been such an honor to work with you, and it's you've made it easy. But with that, then, if anyone has any questions in response to Jason's presentation or thoughts and comments that came up, feel free to pop them into the chat, use the Q&A box, or even raise your hand and we can unmute you if you would like to ask directly. I have a question that we can start with, but yeah, what advice would you like to give at the next GrizzlyCorps Fellow, if you could?
Yeah, I think, three things come to mind. The first is to be flexible. Things change and plans change and partners change. And so I think being flexible really help, that member through the next year. Also, being open to asking questions and putting yourself out there and being brave enough to say that you don't know and ask for help. I think that's a big one. Everybody at GrizzlyCorps and RCD is so knowledgeable and willing to give answers. There's no like hiding of information. So ask questions. And then I think one of the biggest ones is to bring your lunch and bring water on field days. Don't go without that. They inevitably last longer than you would think. So bring food with you.
Wonderful advice. Always health number one. But,
exactly.
Yeah, and we have another question from Jonathan asking, what opportunities do you see for the RCD to work with the Single Springs Rancheria?
I was hoping to kind of work more with them this year. They weren't in their office as much because of COVID. Our offices are share, we share our offices next door to them rather. And so really to kind of bring them on to maybe some of the field work and get their input on, some traditional ecological knowledge and what they're doing and what maybe some of their ancestors used to do in the area. So I think there's an opportunity to share information and to partner.
Awesome, thank you. All right, and with that, If there are no more questions, thank you so much again, Jason. Really appreciate all of your service and your time. And it has been such a pleasure to work with you.
Thank you.